Welcome to VMware Explore 2022 with the CTO Advisor Studio. Come on in and consume some content.
Welcome back to coverage of VMworld 2022. We're going to have quite a bit of a controversial conversation. I have with me a good friend from the industry, Ken Hoy, Service Solutions Architect at AWS. Ken, first we're going to get into that title. That's an unusual title, but I made this controversial statement over on theCUBE. I said that there's been, to the detriment of IT infrastructure, this overshift to application or the... That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. To the detriment of IT infrastructure, we've overshifted the conversation to the developer experience. Controversial, Ken.
Could be, for sure, yeah.
My thought process is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make this nirvana of developer experience where they're just contributing compute, networking, storage, etc. via an abstraction. In the public clouds, that's very much an option. If you're a AWS customer, you don't think about any of that. But if you're a hybrid IT customer, you're thinking about your AS400, you're thinking about your mainframes, you're thinking about your SAP running on HPUX. As you're transition to the public cloud, you're thinking about your VMware vSphere running in the public cloud. My argument is that there's a lot of plumbing that needs to happen for the developer experience to be fully enabled in the way that we are painting. Okay. And when there's a cool solution like the NetApp FSN service that now supports VMware Cloud on AWS, directly attaching storage to it, I kind of looked at that announcement and shrugged my shoulders. It's technically amazing. Yeah. But I'm thinking about developer experience.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me on in VMware Explore and talking with you about IT. It's great because we've had a lot of these private conversations before, so it's great to have it on camera. So in a certain sense I agree with you. I think there is obviously a very heavy focus right now on developers within the VMware ecosystem. But I think that's kind of natural in the sense that there's been so much talk about DevOps and bringing developers and operations together, and companies like NetApp or VMware have been so, their customer base is so filled with operators that they need to kind of reach out to developers to kind of bring them into the conversation. And I think where that fits in here with VMware Cloud and AWS, or just AWS in general, is, well, it's true that we do the cloud, we're doing the managed service part, we're taking care of a lot of that plumbing and infrastructure. There is also the shared responsibility model, where yes, we'll manage the underlying infrastructure, but what's sitting on that infrastructure? Workloads, data, and that is something that developers should care about, but that's not necessarily been something they have been aligned to in the past. So I think what NetApp and us are trying to do is say, let's bring the developer and operator community together so they can address that, they share the responsibility for data.
So at some point I'll have someone from NetApp on, or somebody from the FSX team specifically to talk about that solution and why it's important. Yeah. But we brought you on to talk about a natural combination of environments. AWS famously a few years ago started to meet IT infrastructure professionals and IT infrastructure where they were, which is, I have workloads that make sense on VMware vSphere, and I don't need EC2 or S3 or any of the AWS native services itself, but I want the power and the elasticity of the AWS underlay. So over the past few years, VMware and AWS has done the hard work of delivering VMC on AWS. A next logical progression is your role within AWS, which is talking about the newish service announced AWS Backup, but first I want to hit on your title. That's an unusual title, Ken.
Sure. So, the Service Solutions Architect, a couple of the things that differentiate us is I actually work as part of a service team. In this case, it's the AWS Data Protection service team. And we're very focused, our charter really is to help customers protect their data wherever it's sitting, whether it's in AWS or even on-prem. And my role as an SA is really to be the voice of the customer back to our product management engineering team. I lead a team right now. All of us on this team not only have vendor experience, but we have operator experience, dealing with infrastructure and dealing with data and backup and protecting that data. So our job is to go to the product management and engineering team and go, this is what customers need in order to be able to protect their data in a scalable way. So that is kind of the, that's why it's a service SA role, because it's really, we're functioning on behalf of the customer back to a specific service team.
Okay, that makes sense. Walk me through the customer journey when it comes to data protection.
Sure.
Especially on AWS. I've decided that I'm going to move to the public cloud and I'm going to initially do a lift and shift. I'm going to go from VMware vSphere on premises to VMC on AWS. I need to back that up.
Yep.
I need to protect that data. What does AWS Data Protection come in with that customer?
Sure. So I talked about the shared responsibility model when it comes to security and also protecting your environment. So again, AWS, along with VMware, we're protecting, say, the configuration, right, of your infrastructure. But for the customer, they are still responsible for protecting the data itself. And what we want to do is provide all the tools that customers need to be able to do that. So one of the first service that came out with for the AWS Data Protection team was AWS Backup. And the idea is customers came to us and said, we like the fact that you have all these services, all these places you can store your data, but what happens if there's an outage? What happens if there's a problem or corruption? How do I make sure that I can recover that data in an easy way? So in response to that, the data protection team was formed and we created a solution, first a solution that would help customers back up and recover their data on any service in AWS. We're starting, right now we actually support 15 services in AWS, and that list will continue to grow over time.
So help me out with that overall capability and think this through. So I'm hosting VMs on, let's say it's the FSx service, on NetApps, or even I'm extending my VM storage to the non-NetApp version, on-tap version of the service. How am I able to natively back that up, and is that now independent of my VMC on AWS deployment?
So a couple of things there, and I'm glad we're talking about FSx and VMC, because like you said, that was announced here at VMware Explore, and we support both services in terms of backing up and protecting those environments. So with AWS Backup, we really think about 3 pillars based on customer discussions. And first pillar is data resiliency, right, across as many services as possible. So, and that means being able to recover data wherever it sits when it needs to be, but also means there has to be some kind of separation, right, where if someone was able, for example, to hack into the production environment, they should not be able to then have the permission to go and delete all your backups or to tamper with the backups. So that was something that we built into AWS Backup as a core feature. Is we have this service that can protect data across 15 services, and the way we store those backups, even if someone compromised the production account, they cannot actually do anything to the backups themselves. So that's one way to, again, a tool that gives customers a way to protect their data, against not only corruption, but again, against hackers. And the second pillar is, the customers would say, that's great. We actually know that in services like EBS and RDS, there is already data protection built in natively. But a customer would have to be able to go to each of those consoles, right, and set up backup policies for each of those. So one of the core value props of AWS Backup is we simplify and unify backup management across all services within one dashboard and one set of APIs. So you can, for example, create a policy for how you want, when backups should be taken, how long they should be retained, things like that. And you can do that across all those services and apply them to either 1, 2, 3, or all 15 services if you want, for whatever reason, to have the same policy across all services. And then kind of the third pillar is customers said, hey, I'm back, now that I'm back in with this data, how do I have visibility to know I'm compliant, right? What if something over time drifts and now I cannot, and now I thought I was backing up this data, but it actually isn't happening. So we provide that through a tool called Backup Auto Manager, where you can actually, we'll actually be able to tell a customer, hey, you have all these VMs, and you initially set them to be, have a certain backup policy, now over time for some reason they've drifted, or more likely, you created some new VMs and you forgot to make sure that they're following this backup policy. So those kind of the 3 ways that we're helping customers kind of manage their backup and data protection across.
So I think I'm starting to understand the value of those 3 pillars. Let's walk through kind of that typical lift and expand, lift, shift, and expand motion that customers are in. So I've lifted my VMware environment from my private data center into VMC on AWS. I may continue to use my existing data protection solution. And then I decide that we're going to move forward. We're going to break up an application that currently uses an Oracle database that's running in a VM to provide the persistent layer of data, and I'm going to move that to RDS. And now when I look at my existing backup solution, that backup solution doesn't protect RDS directly. It protects my VMs, but not my RDS data set. Now I can, if I'm hearing you correctly, I can move to AWS backup or data protection, have one policy for the application VM, and the same policy for RDS in a single solution.
And that extends beyond even, another use case that customers have is maybe they have that database that's sitting in RDS, and now they want to do some analytics on that data. So maybe they export that out to an S3 bucket, and they want to be able to do analytics on that. But they also want to make sure that that data is protected as well, and we enable that. So now, as you said, they can do it across all these services, and instead of having to manage the backups for each one separately, they can manage it under one unified interface.
So I know my audience, and this is VMware Explore 2022. They're going to ask the question, okay, that's great, but one of the big selling points for VMC on AWS is that connection between my VMware environment, whether it's transient or it's a permanent relationship where I have my vSphere located on premises and I have VMC on AWS in the AWS infrastructure. Now I have 2 different backup solutions.
And first of all, I do want to say there may be use cases where that actually makes sense, especially in a hybrid environment where a customer maybe not just have VMware, but maybe they have Solaris, HPUX even, or bare metal Windows that they're protecting on premises. And so in that situation, it makes sense for them to keep what they have. But it's also the case that we do have customers that maybe want to use a native solution. And like you said, they want to protect their VMware environment both on premises and in the cloud. So one of the side benefits of building something for VMware Cloud and AWS is the methodology we follow to be able to back up that environment is actually infrastructure agnostic, in the sense that we can actually back up VMware wherever it sits, as long as you have a vCenter environment and that you're leveraging the vSphere APIs for data protection. We can actually back that up.
I don't know if there's too many ESXi only customers looking to leverage VMC on
Yeah.
AWS and
Right.
AWS backup. That would be, if you have that use case, I would love to hear from you. That's really unique
Yeah.
use case.
So in that case, again, there's a certain use case where a customer goes, so I'm going to use AWS backup to protect VMware Cloud and AWS, and because I want to use a single interface, they may choose to then also back up their on-prem environment.
So you walked right into kind of my next question, which is, I might have other stuff.
Yes.
I might decide that I want to use AWS backup to back up native AWS services because there's 15 services that you back up. And I haven't run into another data protection company that can make that claim for AWS that they back up 15 different services. So that's compelling. But there's features and needs beyond those AWS services. So talk to me about that relationship with the other data protection companies.
Sure. So, first and foremost, I want to say, AWS actually has a very deep and wide partner program. So we really value our backup and recovery partners. The Veeams, the Commvault, the Veritas, Clumios, N2WS. I'm sure I'm probably forgetting a few more, but we value all those partners, and we want to work with them. So we feel that our product, our solution and theirs is actually complementary in a couple of ways. One is that for certain customers, like you said, if they have workloads that they require a Veeam, for example, or a Commvault to protect, they can keep that, and they can also use AWS backup. But we have customers who also want to say, you know what, I want a bit of backup, all the services in AWS, and I also want to back up everything on-prem, and I want to use the tool that I've already been using for the last 10 years. We completely respect that. So one of the things that I'm doing as a service SA is trying to work with these partners and allow them to leverage our APIs so that they can gain all the benefits of AWS backup, but as integrated with their tool.
So in theory, if the relationships develop as you're describing it, I'll have a Commvault that's able to back up my Solaris, my AIX, my HPUX, my AS400, and through the same console I can back up my RDS, my EC2, even my VMC on AWS if I can choose, and then I could use my Commvault policies that call the AWS APIs.
Exactly, and the clear benefit there for those partners is we've, in a sense, done a lot of the hard work of integrating with all these other services, like I said, 15 in all. And right now, if each of our partners, they're doing a great job, but they have to integrate each service separately. And it takes time to do that, right? We've already done that hard work. So what we want to go to the partner and say, instead of you doing that, just write to the AWS backup APIs. And you basically gain all the benefits of the work that we've done already with the other service teams to integrate with their services.
So we can't have this conversation, and my friend Corey Quinn will slap me on the wrist if I don't talk about costing.
Yeah.
How much does this cost? How do I pay for this?
Yeah, so the AWS backup service itself, there's no cost to it. What you customers do pay for is the storage capacity used to store their backups, and the cost and the cost is strictly on what we call our data plane where we're storing the backups, and there's a typical monthly charge just like you would with any other service.
So let's talk about the last piece, which is cross AZ. Disaster recovery or high availability, however you want to look at it. If the data lives in AWS, there's a couple of questions. One around cost, and then two around where I can restore to.
Yeah.
How does that work from both a technical perspective, like how do I back up a solution from one AZ to another AZ, or even is that concept exposed to the end user? Yeah,
so the way we want to think about backing up resources is really more at a regional level. right? This is kind of, it doesn't matter where the AZ, which AZ you are, because we can back that up when it's part of that region. What we want to do, obviously we do have customers that have workloads across multiple regions, and they want to back those up. We certainly enable that. But also we have certain cases where customers say, so if you're familiar with the backup world, there's a concept called the 3-2-1 rule. You know, three copies of every data, at least two copies that are in a completely separate system than your production, and at least one copy that's in a totally different location. So in order to follow that, we have customers that say, hey, I'm backing up data that's sitting in US East 1. Well, I also want my backups to be stored somewhere else other than US East 1. Right. Makes perfect sense. So one of the things we're able to do is customers can actually copy their backups across regions or even across accounts. So that they, in that sense, is almost like a virtual air gap, right, from their production environment. So that's kind of one way that people leveraging our services to be able to protect cross-region, cross-account. The other thing we want to do, and I'll talk about this from a management perspective, is sometimes you have different accounts, different regions, and there's backup policies that you need to have. You want to have across your entire estate.
Doesn't matter if I have 8 different AWS accounts. Yeah. I have one backup policy.
Right. So traditionally, you would have to manage that completely separately, every account.
Right.
One of the things we have done though with AWS backups, we actually integrated with AWS organizations. So now from the top level admin organization, you can create a standard backup policy that says, hey, I'm going to protect all my VMware, my VMs, and they're all going to, and by the way, I'm going to retain them for 30 days or to a year, and I want them all to get copied to a different region. You can dictate that at that admin level, and then you can push that down across all the accounts in that organization.
So Ken, I really appreciate you taking out the time to talk to me about AWS Data Protection. When I looked at the announcement that you moved to the team, I kind of scratched my head. Yeah. Like AWS Data Protection, how would that even work? Yeah. We've answered that question.
Sure.
And I also really was curious about the relationships across backup vendors, because if I do have other clouds, we're at VMware Explore and the cross-cloud conversation is there. I'm thinking from the superset of a Commvault or Veritas or Cohesity, Rubrik, go down the list of how I need to go. Yes, I need to go deep into AWS with the 15 services, but what about everything else? And I think you've answered those questions. If you have other questions for Ken, he's pretty prolific on Twitter. You can generally tweet at him and he'll answer the question. But if you're too shy, you can DM me at CTO Advisor on Twitter. I'm more than happy to answer this question or anything else about data protection. You want to follow the CTO Advisor, you can follow us on the web, thectoadvisor.com. Stay tuned for more coverage from VMware Explore 2022.
Okay, thank you, Keith.